Hey, you want to see something sexy? Come and check this out. My hot water service. Haha, isn't she a beauty? Yeah, I know. Hot water's not really that interesting, but you should pay attention to it because in a typical household, heating water uses about 25% of your energy. Now, when it comes to heating water for your home, there are basically two systems. There's a tank with some sort of heat source, and then there's what they call instantaneous hot water. So let's talk about these different systems. If we start with instantaneous hot water, these are becoming quite popular at the moment, and they're typically powered by gas. And that's because gas does a better job with that type of heating system. And with those, you've basically got a thing that's called a heat exchanger, which is basically just a piece of steel that gets heated up by that heat source. And then the water passes through, it's channeled through that exchanger and gets hot as it passes through and then comes out through your tap as hot water. Well, if you choose a gas one, you're basically tethering your house and your lifestyle to a fossil fuel that's going up in price alarmingly at the moment. And if you choose an electric one, they're not all that effective. They struggle to get the hot water to the right temperature, and they can't produce large volumes of hot water when you have times of peak demand. So they're not really the best option. So leaving that aside, if we then come to a tank system, then you've basically got two types. You've got the system that I've got here, which is your basic tank with a standard electrical resistive element inside it, and then you've got the heat pump system. Now, heat pumps are also quite popular at the moment, and I understand why, because they are cheaper to run and they do lower your carbon emissions. So how do they do that, or how do they work? Well, a heat pump hot water service, if you imagine an air conditioning compressor, if you just bolt that on top of a water tank, and if that's a heat pump air conditioning system, then the waste heat that you would normally get out of that air conditioner is then pumped through a jacket that goes around the water tank, and it heats the water, and that's how you get your hot water. As I said, the advantage of these is that they are cheaper to operate and they do lower your carbon emissions. However, the downside is, well, by nature they're more complex, so you've now got an air conditioning unit essentially that can fail, as well as your tank of water. But also they're extremely expensive to buy. So you typically won't get change out of $4,000 for one of those heat pump systems. The system that I've got, the tank I've got, cost me $1,500. So a heat pump is about 3 times the cost. And whilst it is going to save you electricity, it will take you many years to recover the difference in price of that heat pump system. And indeed, by the time it has paid itself off, it's probably going to need replacing. So I'm not a big fan of heat pumps in general, but I recognise that they do fulfil a purpose if you don't have any other way of heating your water with non-fossil fuels. So this comes into my system, which is your basic tank and your basic element, and that's how we've heated water for over 100 years now. It's very simple, and there's not much that can go wrong with it. If you've got that type of system, traditionally you would have had that hooked up to what's called an off-peak circuit. So how off-peak electricity works is it's a different circuit into your house, and it's on a different meter. And your electricity company will turn on the electricity to that circuit when there's a time of low demand, which is typically in the middle of the night. So in the middle of the night, everybody's hot water system turns on and they heat up using the cheapest tariff that you can get for electricity. This has been quite a good system for a long time. However, what's happened in the last few years is that the cost, the off-peak tariff, has gone up and up, so that today it's not significantly cheaper than the normal tariff. And so a lot of the benefit of off-peak is lost there. There is, of course, one other type of hot water service that I nearly forgot to mention, and that's because you don't see them around too much these days, but this is your traditional solar hot water. And with that system, you had a solar collector on the roof of your house, and it uses the sun's radiant heat to heat water that is passing through that collector. And you may have a hot water tank on the roof, or you could have the tank on the ground with connecting pipes, but that's how you heat the hot water. Now, for a long time, these were quite a good system, but in the old days, that was before photovoltaics or PV panels became so cheap. But now it's much cheaper to generate your own electricity from your roof and then use that electricity via a standard tank with an element like mine to heat your hot water than to have one of those solar hot water systems on your roof. And in fact, I would strongly recommend against putting one on your roof because they're very expensive and have a long payback period. And also they use up valuable real estate on your roof that could be given over to solar PV panels. So what you can do is what I've done. You can just have a tank with an element and not have it on off-peak, have it on your general electricity circuit. And so then you can put solar panels on the roof and use that free energy generated by our fusion reactor in the sky to heat that water. So what you would do is the exact opposite of what off-peak does. You would put a timer on your tank so that it turns on in the middle of the day when the sun is shining. So you might put a timer on there to turn on between 11 AM, say, and 1 PM. And typically a system like this needs about 2 hours to fully heat up. So in that time, it will fully heat up and then it can turn itself off. And don't worry about whether it'll still be hot the next day because these tanks are incredibly efficient and effective at maintaining their temperature. In fact, I was worried about this, so I tested it out with my own one, and in the middle of winter, I turned it off for 3 days. And on day 3, to my surprise, I still got a hot shower. So the heat in that water will last for a long, long time. And then by putting it on that timer, you're pretty much running it from solar energy and it's costing you nothing. I recently added another device called an Eddy, and it gives me even greater control over how my water gets heated. It ensures that only solar power from the roof is ever used to heat the hot water and never grid energy. If you want to find out more about that, I'll be making a video about it soon. So hit the subscribe button and the bell icon and you'll be informed when that video goes up. I hope this has been useful information to you. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And until the next video, please enjoy your electric life.